Hi there, another in the series on physical conditioning. I first saw David Goggins on the Joe Rogan show, and he spoke about his early life, and it was absolutely jaw-dropping. I don't think Joe even asked him a question for probably about a quarter of an hour, as he spoke about his father, who was basically some sort of criminal, abused his mother, had a terrible life, and his mother took him and they moved to another town. And this was a town where the KKK, the Klan, used to march in the 4th of July parade. And David Goggins being black, there was uh, quite a lot of racism there. And I listened to the entire interview, and he talked about his career in the SEAL teams and so on, and it was amazing. And then I was alerted to a book written by a chap called Jerry Isler, who it was called Living with a SEAL, and he had met David Goggins at a race and invited him to come and train him for a month, live in his house with his wife and his child uh, in New York, and to put him through a training program, very intensive training program. And David Goggins was still in the SEALs at the time, but he did it. And the book is amazing. It's very funny for a start, but some of the physical challenges. One of the very first things he did, he took him for a fast-paced run. Then when he got back, had him doing chins, chin ups to the bar. Um, so he did as many as he could and was allowed to rest for a few seconds and so on till he got down to where he could just do one. And he said, "That's it." And Goggins said, "No, you're going to keep going till you've done 100." And that was just the start of the whole thing. And he did things like running 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So the book, it's also got quite a few. Well, it's got all the routines and all the training routines, and you can gain a lot of really good information on training. But then David Goggins produced his autobiography, "Can't Hurt Me," which is the main topic we're talking about. And he talks about his early life and so on. And he came to a point in his life where he weighed 300 pounds. He was working as an exterminator, killing cockroaches in restaurants, and was basically the rest of the time a couch potato. And as a result of watching something on TV, he just decided to change his life around and phoned up the Navy recruiters to start the pipeline to becoming a SEAL. And the first thing he had to do was to lose well over 100 pounds in weight before they'd even give him an interview. And how he did that was pretty amazing. Then he went through the famous Buds SEAL training, and he ended up going through Hell Week 3 times. And he talks about how he did it and what mental structures he put in place to do this. And then he was uh, an operational SEAL. He went to Ranger School where he was on a graduate in that program. He tried out for Delta selection, but he dropped out on land nav. Um, just got lost basically. Pretty interesting career. Um, then while he was in the SEALs, a chap he'd gone through buds with, Marcus Luttrell, was involved in the very famous lone survivor uh, incident in Afghanistan. And Goggins decides he wants to do something for the families of the people, the SEALs who were killed. And it's all in the book, but he decides to do this a race. But before they'll even entertain him, he has to enter a qualifying race where you run for 24 hours. And So he turns up, and actually, this is where Jesse Itzler, who wrote Living with a Seal, met him. And Itzler talks about he had entered this 24-hour race, and basically it was just a 1 mile circuit, and you ran it. And he had entered, as most people did, with a group, and they ran it as a relay. One guy had run several circuits, then he'd drop out, someone else would take over, and so on. But David Goggins had turned up on his own, just with his wife, and with a folding chair and some snacks and a couple of bottles of sports drinks. And uh, at the time, he was heavily into powerlifting. He was very heavily muscled. He didn't have a runner's physique. And in fact, he says he'd never really run much apart from what you had to do at Bud's. Never run more than 20 miles in his life before. So he keeps going and he hits 70 miles and then collapses and is lying in a sweaty mess. Um, but then recovers, realizes uh, it's not over, and runs another 31 miles. Um, so that's the kind of drive, the kind of determination, the kind of motivation that this book is all about. And it's certainly one of the best motivating books I've ever read. I actually I've got it on my Kindle, but I've also got an audio version of it, and I used to listen to it on the treadmill in the gym when I was doing cardio because it really gives you tremendous motivation. Uh, but the lesson from this absolute physical machine of David Goggins, his lesson all the time is, if I can do this, anybody can, because of where he came from. So it's an amazing book. It's full of really good information. It's funny in parts. He's got a wry type of humour. He's very down to earth, and I, I've read it a couple of times now, and also listened to it on audio, and I got really an awful lot out of it. And I think anybody who's interested in physical training, uh, particularly if you need a little bit of a lift in your motivation, um, it's the book for you. I'll put a link to some of David Goggins' videos as well with this. So enjoy.